Hello and welcome to The Fool and the Philosopher.
The Philosopher and The Fool.
I'm Cameron.
And I'm Connor.
So I went to this website 2 weeks ago, maybe a week ago.
Yeah.
It's called Pain Science, or Pain Scientist. I think it's Pain Science. And it's a great website. I'd recommend it to anyone with chronic pain or something. It's a guy, he just looks into the science behind chronic pain, mostly. Yeah. But he also looks at studies on stretching and studies on surgery. The really interesting thing about surgery, there's very little proof that it works. That doesn't mean surgery doesn't work. It's a very hard thing to prove, because in order to do a proper blind study with surgery,
you'd have to
you have to cut someone open and do nothing and sew them back up and then tell them you removed the cancer or fixed their knee or whatever. So it's massively unethical.
Yeah.
So the only studies they've done have been very minor knee and forearm surgeries, I think, for I think tendonitis actually, where they say, oh yeah, we took out the because there's a surgery where they destroy the nerve cells.
Yeah.
So they say, yeah, we destroyed the nerves in your arm, and then like, oh yeah, the pain's gone, cool. And so it worked. The placebo was as good as the which is.
Or the pain was hypochondriacally created.
So the really interesting thing is with chronic pain is that, first of all, pain is a sensation generated by the brain, not your nerves.
Yeah.
What happens is your nerves receive a signal and they send it to the brain. They say something's going on.
Yeah.
And your brain then decides what that means. It could be, oh, I'm getting tickled, I'm getting burned, I'm cold, or like there's a chunk out of your arm or something.
Yeah.
And so then
there's a rabid weasel chewing on you.
So then first the brain has to decide, okay, there's pain. And then it has to decide what to do with that pain. It's like, okay, there is ballpark this much pain.
Yeah.
But it also doesn't know where the pain is. So it's just kind of like, yeah, your knee hurts this much, wham. And it could be, so something, I think you actually had a medical problem with this, right? If your upper thigh is very stiff, it can seem like testicular torsion.
Yeah.
And just put it on the podcast, I know that.
Sure.
Didn't think that through.
No, it's okay.
And so it can cause concern, even though it's just like, oh, you just need to loosen up your legs a bit.
Yeah. Far too young to have any problems.
Yeah. Well, it's possible.
It's possible, but it's highly unlikely.
Yeah. But actually, it's like 1 in 5 or something for like minor, like not like cancer or something, but like minor injuries and stuff. They're fairly common. But another thing that's a much more common example I should have used probably is heart attacks. Your heart hurts, and your body doesn't know what that's like, so it's like it's around your arm. Your arm hurts, because it's right nearby. And so that's the one thing. Pain is inaccurate, and the levels are.
Even inaccuracy, this will explain our biology class, is you put your hand on a burning stove and then your body goes, oh, okay, yep, your hand's hurting now, but it takes a few seconds to register the pain traveling even to your brain.
Have you ever done that test where I don't remember how it works exactly. You put your hands into lukewarm water, I think, and then you put them into a thing of hot or cold water, and you can't tell if it's hot or cold immediately?
Yes.
It's just... This burns, but I don't know why.
Yeah. No, that just happens sometimes when I like trying to take a shower or a bath because the water is too cold or something, and then it's like, this water feels really cold. Like, I remember it happened quite a bit when I was taking a bath. I'd like be trying to adjust the water, and it's like, oh, the water's cold, the water's cold, the water's cold. And so I keep my foot underneath the running water, and then I'd start feeling sharp pain. It's like, wait a minute, and then I'd put my hand under the water and be like scalding hot, and then my feet would be all pink and...
Yeah, so it's a fairly inaccurate system.
Yeah.
The other thing is injury. So if you looked at arthritis, I think is where they've done this most.
Yeah.
If you looked at someone's hip, for example, with arthritis, and you had 2 people, they're both 50, they're both guys, both have arthritis in their hips, and you look at their hips, and their hips are on the exact same level of decay from the arthritis.
Yeah.
Or I guess the arthritis is the decay.
Yeah.
It doesn't cause it. It is the decay. They're both on the same level of decay.
Yeah.
One person could be in no pain whatsoever, and one person could be in excruciating pain and unable to use their leg. It's person to person. Even though the damage is the same, the other thing is one person could have barely any arthritis in their hip, and the other person could have massive arthritis. Person with massive arthritis doesn't feel it. Person with hardly any is in pain, can't use their leg.
Yeah.
It's massively variable. So it's same with tendinitis. Someone could have massive problems in their forearm or in their elbow, or they could have massive problems if you look at it through a I don't know, like tissue scan.
Yeah.
But they feel no pain. They don't mind. It doesn't bother them. And someone else could have a minor problem and it really hurts.
So are you saying we should infect everyone with leprosy?
Not necessarily, because the pain...
I don't mean like leprosy,
Yeah.
but just like everyone should be pumped full of painkillers all the time.
Well, it is interesting that is one of the sort of cures for tendinitis is cortisol injections.
Yeah.
Or cortisone? I don't know. Anyways, pain steroids.
Cortisol.
Okay. Steroids, basically. Yeah.
Cortisone is a kind of useless substance. It's really good for carrying other substances in it.
And then the other thing is, like I said, destroying the nerves. And then the person can get back to their life.
Yeah.
And as long as their habits weren't too bad in the first place, they'll heal over time anyways.
Yeah.
And they won't feel the pain that was stopping them. The other interesting thing about chronic pain is that, or this is just, that was pain in general, I guess. Yeah. But with chronic pain, the longer you are in pain, the less the pain is tied to the injury.
Mm.
So if you're in pain for like 2 years, they are totally detached things. Like the slightest, your arm might be, let's say, well, tendinitis. Let's say it's almost fully healed.
Yeah.
Like 99% healed. And you do something like you lift up like a paperweight.
Yeah.
And you could, when your arm was at its most injured, you could lift up that paperweight and it would be okay.
Yeah.
And now you lift up that paperweight and there's something called pain sensitization, where the slightest pains become amplified.
Yeah.
And sensations that aren't pain, such as exhaustion or tingling or something, are interpreted as pain. So you pick up this paperweight and it tires your arm out because you haven't been using it.
Yeah.
And so you feel excruciating pain all throughout your arm. And then on top of that, you're now focused on your arm. You're like, man, my arm. So you're causing your brain to focus on your arm and reinterpret that pain over and over again all day long. So you're in pain all day long from just lifting that paperweight. So I tried something starting about a week or two ago.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm just going to try typing. I don't know, see how far I go.
Yeah.
So I typed 300 words. And the whole time I was telling myself, okay, like, it's very hard to do because you can't control your mind. That isn't an option. You can ignore it, but that's not good. You shouldn't, because those pain signals are there for a reason.
Yeah.
So what I tried to do instead, and I don't know if this is really possible, but it worked for me at least, is try to separate the signals. So, okay, you have to use logic on your, so it's like, okay, I can do other things that don't hurt.
Yeah.
Like I can roll dice, let's say, for an hour and it's fine. Or I can shuffle a deck of cards for an hour and it's fine.
Yeah.
This is or I can play the piano for longer than I can type.
Yeah.
Those should be the same action. So I have a fear of my keyboard, theoretically.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to type. So I typed like 300 words. And then my arms felt a signal similar to excruciating pain.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, what is that? Is that pain or is that exhaustion? And it's like, how do you tell?
Yeah.
So what I did was I thought, okay, I'm just going to sit here for a bit. And pain went away like for just like a fraction of a second at one point.
Yeah.
And then it came back. And I was like, pain doesn't do that.
No.
Like if you're distracted, it goes to the background.
Yeah.
But if it's actual pain, like you're still the injury's still there.
Yeah.
But this was just like gone. And then I started moving my arm and it came back. And I was like, that's exhaustion. Mm-hmm. And that's a very rough approximation of what I was doing. Because it's kind of, everyone's mind's different.
Yeah.
And so I was, okay, so that's tiredness. So the next, 2 days later, because I was trying to rest still to be careful. Mm-hmm. 2 days later, I typed like 500 words, I think.
Yeah.
It's totally fine. Didn't feel any pain at all. I was like, huh. And then the 2 days after that, 600 words. Wasn't even tired afterwards.
Huh. There's 3 thoughts that I want to explore with this. If you're...
It's not done, but I can I can go back to it.
So the first one is, can the opposite of that happen? Like, do you think the opposite of that can happen? So chronic pain, like you stop associating signals.
So I would be injuring myself further and further without realizing it?
Or just people in general.
Well, I think that would be similar to the guy with massive arthritis that doesn't feel it.
Because what I'm asking is, in my hands, I don't notice if my hands get injured anymore.
So that's, I think, what caused my tendonitis in the first place. Because I have a ganglion in my hand, right?
Yeah.
And so using my hands hurts.
Yeah.
It's hurt since I was 11.
Yeah.
So I think that's why, because I know from the age of 11, it's just like, okay, there is pain when I use my hands. It's just something you accept.
Yeah.
And so I think that's how I got into this situation.
Yeah.
Was I pushed myself too hard and I couldn't tell because I just ignore pain in my hands by default.
It's not even like ignoring pain, though. It's like you don't actually even notice its existence.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean.
Because, like, my hands can get massively cut and I won't notice.
Like, if I think about it, there's, like, aching in my hands, right? But that's just there.
So, yeah, I guess you can sort of ignore chronic pains in some ways. I mean, depends. Or, like, you said, the person with the thing in the hip. The other thought is, so, this talk about pain, but I wonder if there's, like, other things like that, because you're saying, like, even the slightest amount of thing can affect you. So, with fatigue and exhaustion, as an example, so, like, depression, or whatever, like, you have depression, then that could, like, oh, I feel slightly exhausted, now I'm more depressed, because I feel like a slight amount of exhaustion. I mean, depression's gone, but you didn't get enough sleep, and so you wake up next morning, and you're tired, and you associate that with tiredness, and so that's, like, more depression there. And if someone just go on, say, diet like you or I have, and then you mess up slightly on that diet, and you have something you shouldn't have, and even then it's, like, such a small signal of, like, but your brain interprets it as massive because of that.
Because you're focusing on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Because, like, my throat is still sore right now. But the level to which it's sore is quite a bit lower than what I've experienced over the past, like, 2 years or whatever. But it's because I went down so low, I am now afraid of it getting worse.
Yeah.
So and I think in this case, I actually was probably pushing it too hard before.
Yeah.
But there's a certain degree of, I'm constantly thinking about it, whereas before I thought I was thirsty all the time.
Yeah.
I realize now that I actually had a slightly sore throat.
Well,
but
for me, I thought I was chronically ill, like with colds. Like, I always had a head cold, constantly had a head cold. And I just thought people got colds every 2 weeks. And the cold they got every 2 weeks would last for 4 weeks. I thought that was just life.
I think a lot of people are finding stuff out like that with the lockdowns and COVID, because there's people that they might think, oh, I thought that was colds, but that was me staying up so late, or that was me drinking alcohol before bed, or that was... I think people are going to be noticing these more, because I noticed I have a runny nose all the time.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait a minute. I thought that was a cold, but I haven't been seeing anyone.
Yeah.
And I don't know what's causing it. I think it's the dry air.
Yeah.
But I'm not entirely sure, and it's a little weird. So yeah, so the other with pain is because of that noticing thing.
Yeah.
When my throat got sore, like really bad, there was isolation, which is bad. But the pain of my so one of the biggest common denominators between people with chronic pain is more chronic pain, basically.
Yeah.
So my throat being sore made my arm...
start accumulating it.
Yeah, my throat being sore made my arms sore. And I'm not saying like my sore arms did cause my sore throat, but the feeling of a sore throat made my arms feel like they were hurting more.
Yeah.
Because the pain compounds upon itself.
Yeah.
Because it's fear, right? And so I'm in fear that my body's falling apart. I'm dying, basically.
Well, even when you have a massive headache, right? Like those really, really terrible ones. And so any small movement basically hurts your head. And then you like move your arm and your arm feels stiff and pain travels through your arm and that amplifies in your head. So any movement in your body gets sent to the pain in your head. And then, God forgive, you get injured while having one of those headaches, because then it's like bouncing back and forth in between the injury and your head.
You're talking about depression, and I think there is a degree to it there that of the fear of, oh no, I'm tired again. I don't want to go back. That sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I think there's also, I do think there's, in all these cases, the injury or the mental illness or whatever is there.
Yeah.
It's just, it might not be as bad as you think. Or, well, it's exactly as bad as you think.
Yeah.
That's the problem. But I think that also can extend further to phobias, for example, because what a phobia is and what a rumination. I don't think you experienced this. It's a what would you call it? Neurological disease, illness. Like, it's temporary for basically everyone. People don't live like this, but it happens where there's something in your life unresolved that's bad.
Yeah.
And so, like, you and your friend your best friend had a falling out, and you just don't know how to resolve it. And
it makes you sick?
No, it's like it's been like this for, let's say, years even.
Yeah.
And you're just like, man, I miss him, but I don't know. It's just like, but if he wasn't so stupid, it would have, like, we wouldn't. But then why didn't he help me with this? And so there's this mess in your head, right?
Yeah.
And people can spend days or weeks or months just going over this in their head and doing basically nothing else. Like, they don't pay attention to the rest of their lives. They're just caught in this.
Well, I mean, not long-term rumination then, but like on small things I have. But
yeah, I think okay.
I think that's something everyone's experienced.
Yeah, probably.
Thinking about something over and over and
over
again.
Like, just, oh man, stupid bus driver, and like your afternoon's ruined or something. Yeah. And so you're stuck in that and why you get stuck in that loop is you're not actually thinking about the event. You're thinking about everything it represents.
Yeah.
So when you're thinking about your friend, that you're thinking about all your friends that you're not seeing. You're thinking about that time when you were both 6, he pushed you. You're thinking and none of those things are factual. They become a feeling or a representation.
Yeah.
Phobias are similar. Like, if you look at a spider, let's say if you have a spider phobia.
Yeah.
You can't. You see fear when you look at a spider.
Yeah.
If you actually broke it down into components and you're like, okay, leg.
Sometimes leg.
Well, if it's like a 10-legged spider.
Well, there are 10-legged
like
spiders.
Camel spiders and stuff.
Yeah.
But what is a 10-legged animal? Like,
well, usually the 10 legs are the little things in front that go wah. And that's just an extension of the puppetation of its mouth parts. So it's basically has jaws that have turned into arms.
Squids have 10 legs, don't they? So squids and camel spiders are the same species.
Yes.
Okay.
Octopuses and spiders are the same species.
Yeah. They're arachnids.
Yes.
Like lobsters. An octopus is a lobster without a shell.
Sure.
So you look at a spider.
Yeah.
There is nothing scary about a leg. Yeah. There is nothing, or if the leg itself is freaky, because you take it, you're like, okay, there's this like fur, this is bone, or exoskeleton.
Yeah.
This is whatever fluid is in them. This is
squishy bits.
Yeah. Or if you have to break it down to the molecules, there's nothing scary about these molecules.
Unless you cut them in.
And you, the movement of a spider, I think, is another thing people really don't like. But
something so small shouldn't be so fast.
Or just the way it moves as well.
Yeah.
But you look at the movement, and movement itself isn't a scary thing. Yeah. It's everything it represents. It's the fear of poison. It's the fear of danger. It's the fear of it crawling on your face. It's the sensations.
Yeah.
It's everything about it. But the thing itself isn't scary if you look at it on a factual basis. And you don't, though, when you're, and that's the same with rumination. And I think that's probably, like, it seems to me that's a very similar thing to, like, the pain, right? You're not saying, okay, I lifted like 2 pounds. That can't be wrecking my back.
Yeah.
There's mental, like, this hurt me one time when I was twisted at a weird angle and it picked it up, and now I have an association. It's like sticking your hand in a fire.
Yeah.
I now have an association with picking up this specific, like, for me, actually, picking up my phone hurts, but I can pick up like a box and it's fine.
The association probably even comes from evolutionary, like a sort of instinctual standpoint, because when you said the example, put your hand in fire, you're going to get burnt more if you put your hand in fire. I don't mean like you're going to get burnt again. The body breaks down from getting damaged, and like scars form, and you can get tougher, but also if you get hurt one way and you get hurt that way again, you don't become tougher, you become more susceptible to some things.
I'm not sure. I'm not going to stand by that, because one of the things the pain scientist guy talks about is there's doctors that say that sort of thing, and it is terrible. Because, so he gave one example of a patient he had. She was 17, I think.
Yeah.
She was doing ballet.
Well, I'm totally willing to retract that statement because it's just based off some knowledge I have.
So she was doing ballet.
Yeah.
And she twisted and she wrecked her ankle.
Yeah.
So she went to the doctor. And the doctor scanned her leg and he's like, oh yeah, you'll never play soccer again. 2 seconds, that was his diagnosis. She left absolutely dead because she was
Why
like,
should be upset about not playing soccer? She's a ballerina.
she's
Sorry.
she can only do one thing. But no, she was like super into soccer. Like she wanted to do like World Cup like stuff, I think.
Yeah.
And she just loved it as well as a sport, play with her friends, that sort of thing. And the doctor in 2 seconds ruined her life because he was like, yeah, I'll never do soccer again. And she left and she was like, well, my life's over. Like what? And she went, I don't know how she ended up going to the pain scientist guy, but he was like, he said that? He's like, yeah. He's like, and he just started swearing and that actually made her feel a lot better. He's like, oh, I'm sorry. Okay, here, we're just going to give you these basic exercises and re-strengthen your ankle and we'll see how you will rebuild your strength.
Yeah.
And like, it was like 6 weeks she was playing again. Like,
well, so
he said one thing a lot of doctors do is they talk about your body as if it's constantly falling apart and breaking down. Yeah. And this demoralizes people and it's like, oh, I'm falling apart and it's never going to get better. And that actually can slow healing.
So I guess on that note, the third thing I want to talk about in regards to that is sort of the other way, like you're saying, it can slow down recovery. And even just that thought. So someone who's paralyzed, right? Like below the waist, like they get an injury. And then the doctor says, you'll never be able to walk again, or you have to be in a wheelchair, you'll have barely any movement. And then the person's like, no, I'm going to move my legs again. They're very much working on like, a friend of mine's mother was in a terrible car accident. The whole family was really injured, and her mother actually like lost control of, I think, both her legs from the car accident. And within a year, she walked again. And her back had actually been broken to a point where doctors like, you won't be able to move your legs again. But she kept doing exercises and kept trying because it's very important to her to move, because like it's a very active family. She was a hunter, her husband's a hunter, having to keep up with her kids because they're very sports oriented.
I think.
And so like her basically trying to do that, she actually recovered because it is an injury that's recoverable. And sometimes you can't, but it's like she still tried to recover, and it was one of those cases where you actually could if you did the right things.
I think there's a degree of optimism because I found that people that are optimistic about recovery tend to recover faster.
Yeah.
I think there's probably also a degree of arrogance. Like we aren't, I don't know, we're not in Star Trek. Like the doctors don't actually know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Like they're the best informed people out there for the most part.
Yeah.
But science can advance so much further.
Also, as a doctor, biopsy can be informed and created. Like you see 20 people with all their back broken, none of them walk again, and you see it the same way every single time. It's like, what makes you think you're going to be different? You're never walking again.
Actually, the pain scientist guy talks about that too.
Yeah.
He has this collection of common medical disorders. They're not really disorders. It's this very long list, and it's like, it's 1 in 5 people's organs are mirrored or something.
Yeah.
Like their heart's on the right, or maybe it's 1 in 20. It's something like that.
Was it really that many?
Yeah, it's pretty common. 30% of people to 80% of people, they're not even sure, have kneecaps on the back of their knee.
Eh?
10% of people or something have a third kidney.
I knew someone who had an extra kidney.
Yeah, I don't know if it's 10%. It might be 1%. But like, he just has this massive list. And he's like, so doctors...
And so these are obvious things that we can notice.
But there's some that are like very hard to tell. Like he had one... his friend was like in constant pain, and the doctors are like in his back. And the doctor's like, it's all in your head. It's all in your head. It was in his knee. Sorry. Yeah. They're like, it's all in your head. It's all in your head. Here's the knee scans. We've done X-rays. We've done what do you call it? Ultrasound. Nothing wrong with your knee.
Yeah.
You just have like psychosomatic disorder. You just have pain sensitization.
Yeah.
and he's like, my knee hurts. And then they did a scan one day, and they're like, wait, what? There's a cyst in your knee, harmless cyst, but just pressing on a nerve. And it was the only reason they found it was because the way his leg was bent when they were taking the scan. Because if he moved his leg like basically any other position, a bone would cover it, or like it was just like perfectly situated.
Yeah.
And so that's not really a harmless thing in terms of it hurt him.
Yeah.
But every person is unique. We're not stamped from the same mold. One thing that could kill one person might not even harm another, basically.
Well, like, even like, I know there's like the double jointedness or like weird medical things, but like personally, when I've gone to the doctors, my core temperature is a degree higher than average.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, that'd explain why you can wear a sweater in hot weather then.
And also, I can be outside in less clothing as well, because I naturally make more heat. And so I need certain amounts of insulation.
Really? I don't know. That's neat.
Yeah, and that's a product of my immune system working all the time. It just heats me up, or something in my cells. Like, not exactly certain, but I'm hotter than normal.
I'm very hot. Yeah. And me, I am like, because everyone's got something. Like our neighbor doesn't stop growing teeth.
Yeah.
Like, she just doesn't stop growing teeth. Mm-hmm. And she's been in braces forever. I don't know if she is still, but
and has to have the teeth constantly pulled and stuff.
Yeah. And her brother has like ridiculous eagle vision. He can see things at 20 feet that most people need to be at 15 feet.
Yeah. But
he doesn't have farsightedness. He's just amazing eyes.
Yeah.
And I can't lift my pinkies to a 90-degree angle with the rest of my fist.
Yeah.
But I can move my fingers independently, which most people can't.
No.
Like, I can move my third and fourth finger independently.
Yeah.
And
most people's third and fourth finger are bound together.
Yeah. So when the physiotherapist was actually doing a test with me where she wanted me to like kind of accordion my fingers, I guess, like sort of crawl them across back and forth. And I was like, okay, I can do it. And she's like, why, do you have an injury? I was like, no, I just my hands are made differently. And so she's like, oh, like, who knows if that test works.
And try putting broad stroke medical application to a small difference, and then there can be bigger differences, like having mirrored organs, which must be a nightmare for doctors trying to do operation.
So if a different 17-year-old girl twisted her ankle, maybe she could never walk again, or never play soccer again. But then the pain scientist guy, he used to be a massage therapist.
Yeah.
And I think it really biased him, because he believes still in the power of massage to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Like, he believes in the 7 perfect points or whatever I think they're called, where it's like muscle knot. Well, not muscle knots, but places where all the muscles connect together.
Yeah.
Like, they'll, like over here they connect to your elbow.
Yeah.
And if you like press on them, then it can increase blood. I don't know what it does. It
blood flow
makes feel people better a lot of the time. And your back as well can relax your back.
Yeah.
It basically relaxes you, is the benefit. And so he's like, yeah, this is great. But he's really against stretching. He has whole essays dedicated to how, there's a lot of science on stretching that it doesn't work. It doesn't prevent injury. It doesn't warm you up for exercise. It's better to just like walk on the spot or something.
Yeah.
It doesn't make you
stack stretch versus active stretch, like
that doesn't matter either.
No,
that's what these studies have found.
Okay, because like there's this whole training thing which is like doing the standing on one leg.
Yeah.
I mean, that stretch has its own problems. There's like trying to do that one to do a hip flexor, whereas that's a stack stretch where there's the active stretch of you stand on one foot and then you just swing your leg back and forth, and that's like the warm-up stretch you want to do.
So basically just doing minor exercise is what a stretch is, and so doing actual minor exercise is better. It doesn't improve your performance. The study they did on it actually was that people who did small warm-ups instead of stretching before a race actually performed better. Like the ones that didn't stretch did better. And he said, so the only reason, but he's like, I stretch all the time because it feels good.
Yeah.
I just enjoy the feeling. But you can also
you can touch your toes if you stretch versus not being able to.
Well, it's funny because he said, so the only benefit from stretching is that it makes you flexible, and there's no point to be flexible, which I disagree with.
Yeah, I highly disagree with that.
Like, you can wash your back or something.
Yeah, well, actually, like, I don't know what it is, but our mother has a constant assessment that I can't touch my back fully with my hands, because a lot of people with my build and frame and who don't stretch as, like, I don't stretch a ton, can't fully touch their back. However, I can, like, have a full range being able to touch my back, whereas a lot of people with my build, I think, actually can't.
Now, there is another series of studies which suggests that stretching doesn't actually improve flexibility. Flexibility might be entirely mental, in that...
Well, excuse me while I do the splits then.
Well, you might be able to. It could be a, if you think you can sort of thing. Because what's happening is, if you think you can't, then your body is saying...
going to tighten itself up. And
well, it's not going to relax past the point where you normally could go. So stretching is making you feel safe in doing an action.
Yeah, well, if maybe stretching is just getting you used to being relaxed.
So this is how I'm going to slightly refute him,
Yeah.
I think. Because, so I want to talk about Ignis Semmelweis now.
Ah, yes, Ignis Semmelweis.
Which has been like 2 months. So, do you know anything about him?
Can barely remember the name. So.
Okay, so in the 17 or 1800s, he was the head physician of 2 medical clinics in Austria, I think. Might have been Germany, but I'll say Austria.
Well, they're basically the same place.
Yeah. They were specifically for, maternity wards.
Yeah.
Women giving birth. Their fatality rates were ridiculously high. One of them was ranging from 10 to 30%, and the other one was ranging from like 7 to 15%. And
I mean, that's all in that perspective, high fatality rates. I mean, if you go back a couple hundred years, that's pretty good.
I don't think so. Like 20% fatality rate is 1 in 5 women, right? That's ridiculous. Like, that's saying like if you...
Yeah, no, that's really high.
Women had more than 1 child typically, right? These like at these numbers they wouldn't be.
Yes, no, that's fair.
Like they wouldn't be able to because they'd be dead. So the numbers were really high.
Yeah.
And they had no idea what was going on.
And is this the case of the hand washing thing, or?
Yeah, but I'll get into that.
Okay.
So they had no idea what was going on.
I've heard about this case then, possibly.
Okay. And so Ignis Semmelweis was like, okay, no idea what's going on. I need to... So he tried everything. He's like, okay, I'm going to just start eliminating variables and try... Okay, so when are they giving birth? Okay, it's at the same time. It's not like one's getting born on Tuesdays, one's on Wednesdays, they're dying. Okay. He's like, okay, what's... Is it the skill level of doctors? Well, we've got... No, they're both basically the same skill level. Although the one with less deaths was more midwives, whereas the one with more deaths was more students.
Yeah.
So he's like, okay, so there's that, but I can't see a difference between like midwives and students.
Yeah.
And he even tried, okay, maybe it's men and women. So he tried like, okay, we'll just limit it to only men or only the women or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, that didn't change it. He's like, okay, maybe it's religion. Like he was like at his wit's end.
You have to try it.
He's
Look
like
at everything.
Because he's like, okay, only Christian doctors are allowed to work now, and then only like Protestant or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, didn't make a difference. And you know, it could have been religion because of like, who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe all Catholics carry some disease for some reason because of what they eat, or who knows?
Yeah.
So he couldn't figure it out, and then he just sort of like out of desperation, he's like, okay, the students do cadavers in the morning before they work on the women.
Yeah.
Maybe that's it. So I'm going to institute a policy of washing your hands in chlorinated lime before you work on the women.
Yeah.
To prevent the cancerous, I think he called it, fluids from the cadavers infecting the women.
Yeah.
And so...
The brown death juice.
So basically. They wash their hands in chlorinated lime.
Yeah.
Fatalities dropped to something like 0.1% in both facilities.
Yeah.
All the way down. So he's like, okay, this is my policy in all my facilities now.
Yeah.
He published a paper on it, or an essay. I don't think they did papers back then. He's like, this is what you do. This is what you do. And the other doctor's like, no, that's ridiculous. He's like, no, you got to do it. Like obviously my case was worse than most places around the world, but this has solved it. Like everyone has to implement this.
And the cases were bad because the students were working on cadavers.
I'll get to that. Okay. So he's like, this is what you got to do. You've got wash your hands in chlorinated lime.
Yeah.
And the other doctor's like, no, that doesn't make any sense. The reason people get sick is because of their humors. And so the doctors are going in with bad humors, and their unease or inexperience is affecting the women and causing them to injure themselves.
Yeah.
Or I think it was humor theory that they had back then.
Yeah.
Germ theory didn't exist for another 100 years.
So what? Sorry, what year was this?
I don't remember,
Okay.
but I think it was humor theory.
Yeah.
And they're like, this has no rational scientific basing. Like you're washing your hands makes no sense. And so
It has nothing to do with the 5 mortal humors.
yeah. And actually this is similar to
But it has literally nothing to do with it.
so my you know how I was saying like there's no rational reason to think of death beyond something?
Yeah.
So that's rationalism, right? There has to be a ground up explanation for something. Ignaz Semmelweis wasn't a rationalist. He was an empiricist.
Yeah.
What he believed, or what his philosophy was, I have no idea why them washing their hands works. Like, given the literature, this doesn't actually make sense.
But based on the evidence.
But it works. Based, not the evidence, the results.
Yeah, based on the results. Yeah.
Based
on the facts. That's it.
I don't know, not even the fact, just the results.
Yeah,
He's like, I don't know why this is working,
Yeah.
but it works, so I'm going to do it. And he said, okay, so you know what it is? It's probably because of the cancerous juices or whatever, the cadaver, gets inside the women when they deliver the baby.
Yeah.
And then the other doctors were like, your midwife place had a really high fatality rate. They don't do cadavers.
Yeah.
And yet, so that doesn't make sense. And he's like, well, the women could have a cancerous growth in their body, and the stress of childbirth could rupture it. And then if the doctor's hands aren't cleaned, they could get that on their hands and then from the outside of the woman and bring it inside her and kill her.
Yeah.
And they're like, that women don't just have random cancerous tumors in their body. And he's like, well, it could be in their knee and leak into their body or whatever. And they're like, okay, then how come these people who are obviously cancerous when they give birth don't have that problem? So not only were the doctors disagreeing with him and not implementing his policy, they were actually using science to disprove him.
The scientific literature of the time.
Yeah, but also they were using logic to disprove
Yeah.
it. Like, his stuff didn't make any sense.
Yes.
Like, his explanations didn't work. They didn't hold up to scrutiny. Like, even today, his explanations don't hold up to scrutiny. So that's the really interesting thing. It wasn't the cadavers at all.
No.
There was no cancerous fluid or anything. It was streptococcus, like strep throat.
Yeah. Oh.
And so they...
Why was it so... Was it just students had it more likely? Or is it his area he was in?
I don't know why exactly, but it survives washing your hands in soap and water. Which, that is a... So don't get the impression doctors didn't wash their hands.
Yeah.
They did wash their hands.
Everyone. Washing hands has been...
It's just...
For ages, like throughout the medieval ages even.
It's what they... Oh, and the reason he implemented the chlorinated lime was because after the doctors washed their hands with soap and water, you could still smell the cadaver on their hands.
Ah.
So he said some essence of the cadaver still remains. He was wrong. Like, that was just a smell or something, basically. But strep throat, I think, didn't go away for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I guess it resists hand washing or something.
Yeah.
But chlorinated lime does actually get rid of it, because that's... I mean, the poor doctor's hands.
Yeah. That's why they wear medical gloves now. So you don't have to rub your hands in chlorinated lime.
Yeah. So that actually worked. So Semmelweis was wrong. Like, his theory was wrong.
Yeah.
But his solution had results, so he continued to do it. He actually ended up in a mental ward.
That's funny, because that's basically Chinese medicine is what he did.
It's like, we don't know what's going on, but it works.
So we will write it down as something that works and keep on doing it.
But yeah, he actually he lost a lot of respect in the scientific community.
Yeah.
And he was sent to another school and where he wanted to implement his policies, and they didn't allow it. And he was beaten at one point, I think, and that caused, like, I don't remember why he was beaten. I think it was because of people disagreeing with him.
Yeah.
But it could have been unrelated. But that fear ended up getting him put into a bedlam, where he died like 2 years later, because they were basically just places to put the crazy people so you didn't have to look at them.
Yeah.
I don't think they ever helped anyone.
Well, do you remember Wizard in Bedlam? How it actually makes people more insane?
Yeah. So of Mice and Men,
Yeah.
there is a giant hulking... It's about these two brothers.
Yeah.
One is this giant hulking guy, and the other is like this sort of smart, smooth-talking guy. Mm-hmm. And they just wanted to start a new life. Their whole old life sucked, and they're going to a new city. It's like, and the smaller, like, smooth talking brother's like, yeah, we're gonna have a farm. Nobody's gonna hate us anymore. Like all our past things will be forgiven. It's like, oh, we're gonna have a farm. Yes. Oh, tell me about the farm. What's gonna be? And tell me about the rabbits. It's like, oh, well, we're gonna have this, and we're gonna have, and the big brother, he just accidentally kills like animals and people, and so I think his brother ends up actually shooting him, like or something. He's like, tell me about the rabbits, and then he's like, okay, let me tell you, and so, but Wizard in Bedlam, that's how he pretends to be insane. Do you remember? He's like 8 feet tall, right? Mm-hmm. And he's just like, tell me about the rabbits.
Right.
Yes. I just thought that was kind of interesting. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so that is the difference between empiricism and rationalism. The rationalists were right in that he had no scientific reason to be doing what he was doing. Empirically, though, whatever he was doing worked.
Yeah, they should have at least looked at the results and gone, this is better than the past records.
They did, but they couldn't, in good conscience, do something that they didn't know what the result of it was, because they couldn't rationally build up an argument for it. It's sort of like, the hydroxychloroquine thing. Like, this might help against COVID.
Well, it's like...
You can't give that to someone because you can't say what that will do from ground up.
I have an example of something that could be today. So you know those wackos with their crystal healing? And like they wave the crystal or someone and like cures their cancer or whatever. And we could be going, oh, that's just placebo and it like helped them recover. Like,
but if it's placebo and it helps them recover.
Yeah, it's pleased it'll help recover, right? But what if... none of our scientific stuff like goes to show that crystals should get rid of cancer. But what if, like 20 years down the line, we find out that like waving crystals over someone at like the right latitude with like the right frequency or whatever actually quite literally is like the way to heal people.
Well, that's the thing about like this. So this is why I think this refutes the stretching thing.
Mm-hmm.
We cannot prove stretching has any health benefit.
Yeah.
Except that it feels good.
Yeah.
And I say if it feels good and there's very little risk if you do it correctly, then do it.
Yeah.
Now, something like acupuncture, where we also can't prove it has any benefit, and has also been demonstrated to, in certain people, cause massive adverse reactions, that's something you should be more cautious about. Because the placebo benefits, if that's all it is, from acupuncture, can be greatly beneficial. Yeah. But what can happen, someone like me, I'm glad I learned about this beforehand, actually. Yeah. If I got acupuncture, it probably wouldn't work for me. Because it seems to be very based on your mindset.
Yeah.
Like, if you think, oh yeah, this will do it, it'll do it. And if you don't, you don't. But the other thing is, it is painful. And what it can actually cause is like that pain sensitization thing I talked about, it can actually cause like a spiraling, like positive feedback loop. Because you just got stabbed a bunch and now you're in pain and your pain is worse. And so your pain made your pain worse and you're just like in a downward spiral.
Yeah, so my boss,
fear.
Happy she finally quit going to the chiropractor. But she basically says, like, every day I come back from the chiropractor, I feel worse afterwards, and I feel worse for the next day. And I didn't want to say anything about it, because it's, like, your boss, and it's, like, someone else's life, and, like, trying to involve yourself in someone else's medical things is a minefield in and of itself. But it's, like, if you feel worse every time after you have chiropractor, and you feel worse the day after, maybe stop going to it. And eventually she did, because like it's too expensive and it hurts me it's too expensive and it hurts me every day afterwards. But
yeah, and so a lot of people recommend to me, when I have various problems, going to the doctor, going to the physiotherapist, and I've listened in the past to varying degrees, but I really don't like it, and it makes me, I can't actually think of a time where I didn't need a specialized tool, which would be like reconstructing my teeth, where going to the doctor actually positively benefited me. It's always been neutral or negative. Yeah. And this includes physiotherapists, dentists, doctors. And I think the reason is, partly, the doctors don't know anything I don't know, because I am decent at research, and doctors only have so much knowledge.
And so much time.
Yeah. So, and I also have the massive advantage of being me, whereas they are not me.
Yeah, you have a lot of time to look at yourself, whereas they have half an hour?
Yeah. And they might not know as much about whatever condition as you, because you've been looking into it. Like, I read the complete meta-analysis of, what do you call it? I mean, that's not much. That's one study, but it is a meta-analysis on tendinitis. So it's like, what can you tell me about tendinitis that I don't know? If the physiotherapist has a cure for tendinitis that isn't in the meta-analysis of all literature on tendinitis, she needs to
Publish it.
Publish it. Like, she has the cure and she's not giving it to, like, so when people recommend something to me and I say, oh, I don't think so. Oh, but it was great. It's like, if it is great, then they need to be talking to the medical community at large because they know something no one else on earth knows.
Well, I mean, one of the things the doctor did to correct me is I went to one doctor, then I changed doctors. And the second doctor took me off the medication the first doctor gave me because the medication's harmful and there's a better solution.
Well, so when I first did when I first talked to the family doctor, he gave me, he wanted to do a test to see if I had tennis elbow or just forearm like strain. Yeah. So he said, take these anti-inflammatories for a week. Yeah. I took them for like 2 days and it hurt my stomach too much, so I stopped. Yeah. You should know this because you went through anti-inflammatories like crazy for a while. Yeah. They can cause a heart attack in like anyone. Like, your age doesn't matter. Anti-inflammatories can cause heart attacks.
Really?
Yeah. I didn't know that until like a week ago.
Huh.
So
I took a lot of anti-inflammatories.
Like in small doses, like the NSAIDs are fine for the most part. But in prolonged usage, like I think it's a week or more is supposed to be the... they can just... heart attack risk for anyone.
Huh.
So I'm glad I didn't take them for a week.
Yeah.
But this doctor's just like, oh yeah, just try that. And it's not my life. So that whole trust yourself when all men doubt you but make allowance for their doubting too.
Yeah.
It sounds contradictory in a way. But I think I found a way to reconcile it, which is trust yourself completely, right? Mm-hmm. But if someone gives you information that you have not yet thought of yourself. Yeah. So, for example, if they say to me, the physiotherapist has tools which you do not have access to. Yeah. Then I could say, okay, this is where I make allowance for their doubting. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't mean I instantly capitulate. Yeah. Instead, I go, okay, would those tools make a difference? Yeah. Then I can make a decision from there, yes or no. If I decide no, then no matter how many people tell me the physiotherapists have tools, I should not change my mind on that issue. Because they haven't actually added any information to the pool that I have not considered. And so I haven't been doing this. This is what I've learned in the last couple months of not being able to talk for 2 months. Is I should not, I think going to her for the first time actually helped me. Yeah. The second time was not worth it at all. And I still am dealing with the consequences there. And... well, I'll say if I'm able to use my arms to a decent degree by my birthday, we'll call it even. But
so there's this. I have a bit of a mixed opinion on chiropractors. I think a good half of them are quacks.
Cracks.
Sure, but because chiropractic schools is viewed very lowly in medical schools, and there's a whole lot of different techniques to chiropractic schools, like there's a bunch of different practices, and a lot of time people complain that hurts them more than it helps.
So going back to that pain sensitization, one thing they've found with chronic injuries, like knee injuries, I think was the example they gave, was that a change in stimulus can be a cure for an injury. Yeah. So frozen shoulder is a condition where there's no reason for anything to be wrong, but you can't move your shoulder. And I think it can be very painful because of cramping and whatnot. Yeah. And it's also very frustrating because you're like stuck. Yeah. And the way, chiropractic can actually cure it. But so can theoretically, tapping someone on the side of the head when they're not thinking and they twitch and move their shoulder. Because it's a change in state can be amazing for your mental and physical health. And I think that's, when I was looking into the science behind Wim Hof, that seemed to be one of the biggest benefits to his breathing is that it puts you into a state where you cannot, when you're not breathing, your mind doesn't care about anything else. Yeah. So you're basically resetting your mind, which means I think Wim Hof breathing can be very beneficial for people with anxiety. Yeah. Potentially. I'm not making any medical claims here, but I mean, it's fairly safe as long as you're sitting down when you do it. Yeah. And
you're not driving.
Do not.
Let's not talk about me listening to a podcast on Wim Hof technique while I'm driving. I realized after a bit it was a really bad idea to try to follow along.
No, he actually gives a warning on his YouTube channel, which is do not be doing anything but sitting down.
Well, I was sitting down. I was sitting in the car.
Maybe he should start with, this can make you pass out. That should be the step one. Okay. This is a safe method, except it can make you pass out. So be lying or sitting down and not driving.
So, on the chiropractic, there's this YouTube channel I've watched a few times, and it's a chiropractor doctor.
Yeah.
And so he has this fun little tool, which is he runs it down your back, and it shows him the alignment of the muscles in your spine on both sides, and basically can find curves. And he has like a few other tools so he can see things. But also he has a technique that you can't quite do by yourself, and he has a few machines, which he like gets you to sit on. And like he quite literally like audibly forces someone's joints in different positions, and like you can hear the audible cracks sometimes, but also like he does complete readjustments. And he's like goes through like several sessions with one person. So this like guy came in with this horrible bend to his back. And like part of what this doctor is doing, like you could probably do this with the help of a friend if like you had the right thing, but it's like your muscles are like super twisted and like they've caused your spine to twist. So I'm going to slowly correct that by literally forcing your body to correct it into position. And so he like stretched out in the muscle where it makes so people can walk. He sometimes like, oh, this thing in your foot's on a line, and so he grabs her foot and like presses back in place. And one of the interesting ones was this like he had this one female patient, and she had something wrong with her ankle. And he like fixed her ankle up, and then he's like, do you have any other problems? Like, oh yeah, I've got pain here and pain here. So he went and fixed those things, and like gave her basically said like, yeah, if you just continue doing activities like this, you can fix it. And then she was talking to him about how she's probably going to get plastic surgery for her nose because her nose is twisted the wrong direction. Like it has a twist to it, it's not straight on, and it affects her breathing a bit. And he said, stand still for a second. He's like, okay. And then he said to her father, hold her head in place. And he's like, okay.
Is this that really big buff guy?
Yes.
I don't know if I'd even count him as a chiropractor if this is what I'm thinking of, because he gives like stretches and exercises.
Yeah, he does that too.
Yeah.
And so he grabbed her nose in his hands and then twisted, and it's like this horrible nose came from her nose, and she just like burst out crying, quickly lifted up her face, and her nose was aligned, and he like reset her nose alignment. It's like, you don't need plastic surgery for that. And it's like a lot of disalignments in the nose and the face can be corrected with quick, sharp movements from a professional.
Yeah, if this is the guy I'm thinking of,
he's massively muscular.
Yeah. Is he the guy, like, he saw a video where he like did some work on like the strongest guy in the world or something? And
maybe, I don't know.
Okay. But this guy seems to me more like a physician or something. Like, I don't know what to call him, but if all chiropractors were like him, I think it'd be a much more legitimate business.
The guy might just be similar to the one you think he has. Like, he has machines and he actually works on people. Like,
yeah, the guy I'm thinking of doesn't have machines, though, I think.
Okay, no, this guy has like several machines, which basically help him. Basically, his machines are vices for humans, so he can put you into a vice, so then he can work on you.
So the pain scientist talks a bit about like physiotherapy a lot. He's quite down on it because I forget what he calls it. There's a whole school of philosophy, like it's called like systematic curing or something like that. Basically, the idea is a human is a meat robot. If the hinge is rusty, you oil it. If the gear is out of place, you move it into place. He's very against that because, like he said, everyone's different, and so he said physiotherapists, they can get away with just saying like, oh yeah, we want simple, easy cures. The physiotherapist wants it because it's how humans work. It feels right to say, oh, my hip's out of whack. It's something you can talk to your friends about at the water cooler, as he put it. But people are not meat robots. We are very complicated.
Yeah.
And like, we're also not, like, if we made a meat robot, we could probably actually fix it with input A fixes problem A. Yeah. But people are weird. Like, to fix things, like if your posture's bad, or you lead forward with your right foot too much, and so it's got your hip out of whack. Yeah. Maybe that's just how you are. Well, it's not even necessarily a bad thing.
Well, even on that,
it's like if your shoulder's twisted, like I can't lift my pinky up, right? Maybe someone could fix that, but it's not a problem. Mm-hmm. It's just I'm a different person.
Well, I was talking to a friend about this on the mental side of things. So their insanity or mental disability is you're actually disabled from what's going on in your brain. Whereas she was saying she has had problems with trying to get diagnosis for like mental things, where doctor's like, sorry, I can't call this a disability because you can still function and your quality of life is good enough that I can't call it a disability.
Well, that's the definition of a mental illness.
Yeah.
of any sort is that it meets all the criteria defining that illness.
Yeah.
And then part two, it actually makes your life worse.
Yeah.
So, someone with, like, I don't know. I was going to say Kanye, but I think it has actually made his life worse. Mm-hmm. But, like, he's bipolar, right? Mm-hmm. But in a way, he could be not bipolar because his mania has allowed him to succeed in great things. We don't see the depressed side, which could be awful. Yeah. And the mania also led to his sort of embarrassing campaign for presidency. Yeah. I don't know if he found it embarrassing or not, but his wife seemed to be having troubles with it.
Mania can be followed with delusion.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of what it is. But if you are not negatively affected, if you had the exact same state of mind as him, but you never acted on it, let's say.
Well, mania and delusion are a little different as well.
So, Jonathan Nash.
Yeah.
Schizophrenic. The mathematician. He was massively schizophrenic. But he learned to just ignore it.
Yeah.
And so I think you wouldn't say he was actually schizophrenic because you would say he hallucinates, but it doesn't affect his life. Mm-hmm. And because part of it is that it's ruining his life. But it did ruin his life for a long time. But once he figured it out, he just got on with his life.
And even I can't remember who is, and you're trying to use Conte as an example, but there is a businessman who has, it's like an interview of someone. He has mania, and he is like pathological in some way. I can't remember what it is, but so he has like two things that I consider to be quite impactful to people. However, he has set up his life in such a way that these two things are an advantage to him, and he's a super successful businessman. If he was trying to live his life like someone else, it would be a disability, but the way he lives his life with these things makes it an advantage.
Actually, Scott Adams, like the guy that does Dilbert, he has a tiny bladder. He's talked about this. Like, absolutely tiny. And for most of his early life when he was working at like Bell and whatnot, it was awful. Like he would be trying to work and he'd be in pain and he'd have to run to the bathroom like, 6 times a day or whatever more.
Yeah.
But now that he's a cartoonist, he works at home. It's not a problem, right? He just, take a break, go to the bathroom, come back, keep drawing. And it doesn't affect his life anymore.
Yeah.
And it's a really interesting condition too, because he learned about it when he was in his 50s or 60s. Like, he's just like, I just thought I was like, had some sort of horrible disease all my life or something, or condition. And I didn't want to talk to anyone about it. It was super embarrassing. Yeah. And he just learned about it and he's like, what the? So he was like sitting with his family and he's like in his 60s or 50s when he learned about it. And he was saying like, yeah, so it turns out that I have this thing. And I don't remember if he has a brother or it was his brother-in-law or something. He's like, wait, that's just like a normal thing people can have? I thought I was like, it's like, no.
Well, I mean, even with the two of us, our aunt, or I guess our great aunt, is like, oh, I have all these things, like, fact, he might die. And then our grandma's like, oh yeah, my arthritis acts up whenever I have gluten.
Yeah, we were trying to figure out all this stuff, and it turns out our grandma's had it this whole time.
And even with our, like, grandfather on our dad's side, it's, the type of diabetes he has is related to that.
But it's like, they get on with their life. Although, actually, our grandpa at least actually does make changes in his life too, because it can be quite bad.
Yeah, diabetes is awful.
Our grandma just powers through the pain as far as I can tell.
Yeah. And then goes blind and powers through that.
Yeah. Well, so that chiropractor you're talking about again, like fixing your leg length and your foot and whatever. Have you ever seen faith healers heal people in wheelchairs?
Nope.
It's kind of like, you know how I said like you can fix a knee problem with like a change in stimulus or a mental problem with a change? You can do the same with paralysis.
Sorry, when you just say faith healers, you make me think of the book Cruel Miracles. And the story of the guy who's paralyzed, but his touch can heal anyone. Yeah, so the real faith healers, though, like the ones that are fake. Not fake faith healers that are real. But so you're in this very emotionally charged state, and there's a lot of expectations on you. Yeah. And you're in an altered state of consciousness, and they like tap your forehead or whatever, and like, infect you with the spirit of God. Mm-hmm. And you can't. It's kind of like how blind people, a lot of them can still see. Yeah. You basically bypass the nerves and the legs work on their own.
And so for the
You're so embarrassed. Your body makes you don't want to embarrass the faith healer so much that your body's like, all right, we're walking. I don't care.
Yeah, I don't know what the exact science is, but
I mean, that could be a part of it, is not wanting to let people down.
But apparently it doesn't last.
Yeah.
It's like duration of the show kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Although I do wonder if, we denigrate the faith healer for that. But I wonder if,
what's weird,
keep them in the state of mind.
Yeah.
Teach them that you don't have to feel your legs to use them.
Well, I mean, I've talked about this before, but the guy who's in charge of that crazy Scientologist, so when he was a kid, and the old person who was in charge, who was like, if I wanted to make money, I'd start a cult, and they started a cult, and they had a ton of money off it. So he, so to say, faith healed the current leader. The current leader of Scientologists used to have extremely bad panic attacks. He would have trouble breathing. He would couldn't interact with normal society. Like some sort of Asperger-like symptoms and panic attacks. And so his two parents basically went to the Colin Scientologist and met him there. And he's like, you've helped other people, maybe you can help our son. And it's like, okay, let me talk to him for a bit. And it's like, I have to talk to him by myself. And they're like, okay. And it's like, they just wanted to try to help their son. So they left. And he talked to their son for 3 hours or something. And when the talking was done, their son was able to interact with the world. And that's why they joined the cult of Scientology. Is because he fixed their son.
It's like Rasputin cured hemophilia.
Yeah.
By taking him off aspirin, I think it was.
Oh.
Yeah. So I think there might be something in hey, what are these con techniques? Because they work. Mm-hmm. Can doctors use them?
Well, I think some doctors sort of do, but to an extent of not being a con, naturopaths. So the main advantage to a naturopath, you go to a doctor, and a doctor has 30, 50, 100 patients in a day, and they have to get through all of them. And so they're trying to get through patients, try and help each person as fast as they can. They'll ask them questions. You have to tell the doctor what your problem is, and they're just trying to ask you the broadest questions they can to get down to it. And then it's all right, it's not this, it's not this, it's not this, it's not this, based on all the questions I asked. They told me this piece of information, this piece of information, this piece of information. Okay, I'm going to prescribe you this. Come back to me in a week. If it doesn't work, we'll try something else. Whereas a naturopath, or even a crystal healer, I'm going to drop them down a level, has you, all right, come on in to my shop and come upstairs. And one of the things about both those is they take time to do their work, because one of the many practices of naturopathy is they show you how they make the thing while they're talking. And that's also because when you actually get to the more scientific medical thing, the whole time they're making the thing, they're basically going on and on and on with you talking. It's okay, so they have this problem with breathing. So into their medicine, I'm going to mix something that, according to my literature, opens up breathing ways. And they're not even trying to think oh, you have whatever breathing problem, so you need this medicine. I'm going to give you something that helps with breathing. And so they spend time with you, they talk with you about their problems, and they give you a good hour to sometimes 2 hours of their time. And just having someone there for 2 hours who's a professional that is trying to help you, and they even give you something in case of naturopath, that medicine might be far more effective because they're giving you something and they spent time with you, and you just need that contact. And so with the Chinese doctor doing the acupuncture or whatever and going sessions with her, she's booked a ridiculous amount, like most doctors are. But you have a patient, time with her. Basically, we had to pull family string connections for me to even become her patient for a bit. And that's because she spends an hour with you, and she talks about the problems, and she talks about literature, and it's when she was going through the whole thing and doing examinations, she was basically talking to me about various different things, next time come back and I will continue talking to you about the cures. It's basically giving me a lecture while she's treating me. And even after that, it's I don't have enough time for you to tell you all the literature on this, so read this book. And so her whole method was very human. I don't know, very close contact, very personal, very much of trying to understand your problem, get close, and help.
They teach rather than dictate.
Yeah.
What I found was reading about pain reduced my pain levels in 2 weeks more than a year of being told what exercises to do, not knowing why I should do them.
Well, exactly. Like, she was telling me, like, these people, like the Chinese elements, I can't remember all of them because they've got, like, fire, metal, earth, wood, air, I think. Is that all? That's the 5? Okay. And so she's saying, like, I can't remember if I have, like, a wood-like personality or fire or whatever, but it's like, you need more metal in your system. And it's like, how much do you exercise? So I told her how much I exercise. Like, you need more exercise than that, because that'll help you out with these things, because it makes you more like this. And it's like, what foods do you eat? And like, oh, those foods are very good for a fire-like thing, but you need more of this to bounce you more towards air or whatever. I can't remember the exact specifics, but it's like, you need to do these things to help with this. And, like, people like this usually have problems with this, and people like this. So, and it's kind of funny because it's still categorizing, but instead of having, like, oh, a person's like this, so we need this to cure them, there's 5 different kinds of people, and this helps this kind of person. So it's getting closer to each person's individual. Even then, they have mixes. Like, there can be a person of metal who has a lot of air in them, and so they need more fire because their fire's out of balance. And it probably all just comes from trial and error of, did that work? 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 Yeah.
I gotta stop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Gotta talk about similes.
Yeah. Okay.
Which has really changed my view on the world, actually. To try to be more empiricist instead of rational.